Alrighty, what's up, Ringside Nation? The Ring Boys are back. Look who I found on the street. Doc's back. No Artie on the day, down one with my beautiful co-host. Doc, how we feeling, man?
Is my mic still working, or got to dig it out of the attic? No, we're back. How you doing, everyone?
That's the cobwebs off, man. We got fights to talk about. Israel Adesanya loses to Drake Duplessis. Australia was not kind to us. For those at home, I just realized I'm not even sharing the screen here. So let me just pop that up for you. Picks are on the screen. Artie won the card 7 for 12. Myself 5 for 12. My lock of the card and Matthias Gamrot didn't hit. Doc's lock of the card hit. You guys are just taking minus 1,000s, so I'm not having it. But yeah, picks are on the screen. It is what it is. We'll get right back into it, and we'll go from there. Drake Duplessis, absolutely getting the job done in Australia, in Israel Adesanya's hometown. Now, I picked Israel because he looked good. His body was looking insane. He had time off, but he was training. He was making YouTube videos. He was near the sport. And after he cried, I thought he was going to be passionate and very motivated. Like Leon Rocky Edwards, you bring up my life. I'm going to channel that, hone it in, and become champ. But that was not the case. Duplessis absolutely rocks him, gets his back, chokes him out. First time Adesanya's lost a title fight in this manner of losing by submission. And yeah, not a good one. So, Doc, congrats on the pick. Tell me what you saw.
Yeah, I mean, it was a really good fight. Izzy, I think, looked really sharp. I think he was winning that fight. Most people probably had him winning that fight. He was getting his distance right. He was connecting on most of his punches and kicks. But he kind of let his guard down for a split second, and Drake Duplessis, he capitalized on the moment, and that's what he does. He's grown so much as a UFC athlete these last few years. I remember when he was an early prelim when Alex Pereira fought Sean Strickland for the first time, and since then he's only been going up. He had that nose surgery. That's why I knew that his cardio was going to be good at the end. He just looks so strong, and he's so well-rounded. And even though Izzy was staring him down in the beginning, I could see that DDP was not scared at all. He was not scared during the press conferences. He believes in himself, and he's able to move forward at any cost. And he ate a couple of great shots from Izzy that have knocked out other people in the past. And I think that shocked Izzy a bit, even though, again, he was getting in the flow of things, connecting on almost everything towards the end. But it gets in your head when someone is eating your best shots, and that's what Dricus did. And he's a great champion. I'm glad to see that at the end they put their differences aside. They exchanged some gifts. It was nasty leading up to it. We remember the cringe moments from when Dricus beat Robert Whittaker. So overall, fantastic main event. Sad for Izzy, but he said he's not leaving. He's a great fighter. He was winning that fight. So still has a few things to work on. I think he looked fantastic. I'm glad that they went after each other. So not much else to say. I picked Dricus, but it could have gone either way.
Yeah, I mean, Izzy had the edge on strikes according to the stats. He used those body shots really well to open it up, because Drake is known for just guarding himself the whole time until he just throws all of his power volume punches. And I thought he did well to get back into the fight, and he was calculated in rounds like 3 and 4. He slid back into his rhythm and looked like his normal self and shook off the ring rust a little bit. But man, he's still feeling it. He's still feeling it from Sean Strickland. I think he's still in a daze, but he'll be back. Don't know who, don't know when. Dracus also said, I don't care who I fight. I just want to hear and still. And I think he'll be getting a title fight in South Africa next year.
Yeah, I think that there's both fights that are possibilities here are interesting. So I think seeing Sean Strickland against him would be interesting, because that was a controversial decision the first time. I think seeing Robert Whittaker against him would be interesting, because that first performance by Robert Whittaker made no sense to anybody, and the last performance by Robert Whittaker showed why he used to be the middleweight champ. So I want to see both of those fights. I don't care who gets it first, but again, Dreykus is the real deal. So he's a great middleweight champion. People were bringing up how when Izzy was on his way up, they were comparing him to Anderson Silva. You know, he had like 11 wins in a row, and so many title defenses. But this also, to me, shows what Anderson Silva did before Izzy came about was just so impressive. And it's so hard to stay at the top of the sport when everybody is evolving, everyone is learning your tactics. And that's something that Anderson Silva was able to do, even though I think the level of competition back then was not the same as what it is now. Again, just props to what Izzy did early on during his title run. Props to Anderson Silva for showing the UFC how to maintain a belt and show how impressive it is. And maybe Dreykus will continue holding this belt for a while. I have no idea. I mean, he's super impressive, very well rounded.
All I'm saying is, my man's still lurking. Khamzat Chimaev.
He doesn't fight.
Khamzat Chimaev drops Robert Whittaker in 2 months, gets a title shot. We'll see him against Dreykus. No, I'm just kidding. I'm totally joking. Yeah, overall, I want to see Izzy take a little bit of a breather, but not too long, and I want to see him back in early 2025. I don't care who he fights. He should not take 11 months off again if he wants to stay on that 10 fight contract that he still has, however many fights remaining. So, you know, he's the second most paid active UFC fighter 2 years ago behind Conor McGregor. I didn't know that from that 10 contract that he got. Artie and I were talking about that on the pre-show, but it makes sense.
He brings fans into the stands. So.
Absolutely, that he does. Speaking of bringing fans to the stands and bringing them to their feet, Kai Kara France absolutely TKOing Steve Wonderboy Erceg, proving you and I wrong. Already got that one right. Man, after getting a title shot, like, and losing in the manner of it happening to Steve, like, obviously Pantoja's insane, and it's very hard to take out Pantoja. But, like, Erceg was in a good headspace. In his interviews, he was saying, like, oh, like, I felt like I gave it a good shot. I feel like if I get this in, I'll be coming back up the rankings. And then the big swinging hammer of Kai Kara France, who's just been taking, how long has he been off for? A year? Comes in and just drops him with that left. And it was just game over. It didn't look so hot. So a wrongful pick by Doc, but 5 fantasy points to be 4 points behind Artie. Artie has 32, you have 20, you have 28, and I have 16. Your Rig Boys fantasy update. Oh man, I'm just sick and tired of not being able to score points. But yeah, Kai Kara France coming in, getting the win in front of the home crowd. Thoughts?
Yeah, that was completely unexpected. You know, Erceg was so close to winning that title, almost proving all of us wrong. And yeah, I don't know. Can Kai Kara France beat Pantoja? Who knows? I think Pantoja's chin is too much for Kai Kara France, and the wrestling from Pantoja will be too much as well. But overall, great fight. I don't know if Erceg was a bit timid in this fight, but nobody expected that. The lines had moved to like minus 250 for Erceg before the start. So people were thinking the same way that I was. But hey, maybe Kai Kara France knew that I haven't had a knockout or a stoppage in a while for my fantasy team, and he wanted to represent. So thank you, Kai Kara France. I appreciate your work. But he shocked the world.
That he did. And he shook up the fantasy rankings.
I'm coming for that belt.
I do think he'll get a title shot out of this, because like there's no one else. Like Steve Erceg was 11th when he got his title shot, and like Amir Albazi's coming back. I don't want to see Brandon Moreno get that title shot, and I don't want to see Brandon Royval get it. So I feel like there's no better suitor at the moment. Another shock of the world is all of us being wrong on Matthias Gamrot. And Dan Hooker, golf clap to you, good sir. I was not familiar with your game. Dan Hooker took the same hiatus almost as Israel Adesanya. You could see them on the same YouTube channel watching fights every other weekend. So you know that they've been in the gym together. And Doc, you said it behind the scene. I'll start it off as your point, but you would have thought this Dan Hooker win would have motivated Israel Adesanya, but man, the room shook over the next hour of the rest of the fight. So, what did you see in Dan Hooker's game to counter Matthias Gamrot's ground ability in wrestling that led him to get this dub?
I mean, he just had such good defense when he got taken down. Mateusz Gamrot was just talking about how he's a better wrestler than Islam Makhachev, that if once he brings somebody down, they can't get back up. Dan Hooker, easy. He kept on getting back up. No risk of submission there. And he was pounding Mateusz Gamrot's face. That first round was one of the most exciting rounds of the year, in my opinion. Back and forth, both fighters got rocked. Hooker almost came back in that round after getting a little bit dominated in the beginning part. Hooker's just such a pure striker, and that's what you get out of the city kickboxers. They just know what they're doing. And although Dan Hooker looks skinny, he packs a punch. And he kept on hitting Gamrot. Gamrot in the last round, he wasn't even shooting for takedowns too much, or when he seemed exhausted. So I wonder if it was the body work that got to him, or what. But Dan Hooker, he's back. He's such an exciting fighter. You see him in the corner just yelling, like all bloodied up. He's a psychopath, but we love that in the UFC. So I'm excited to see Dan Hooker out there. We were talking maybe Justin Gaethje against him. That'll be an exciting fight. Rafael Fiziev against Dan Hooker. That would be an exciting fight.
Dustin Poirier too.
There's lots of ways to go here, but Dan Hooker has revitalized his career. He looked like he was on the way out. He had a little bit of a losing streak, but now he beats Jalen Turner. He beats Mateusz Gamrot, who people were saying could actually compete against Islam for the title. But this just solidifies that Islam is the greatest lightweight and will be.
John Jones should be pound for pound number one rank. The memes are coming in. Yeah, Dan Hooker also said, he was like, yeah, I got all these tattoos. And they're like, what's different now for you as a fighter after your hiatus? He's like, oh, I'm like a video game character unlocking customization, just getting tattoos in his hair. And I'm like, this dude's just having fun with it. And that's what I think was the difference. Like you said, he was getting the stitch and he was getting the blood handled. He was laughing. Like, he just loves the sport. He just loves to do this. And I think Gamrot got in his head a little bit and was just like, all right, to the ground. Oh my God, what? I can't hold him here. And it just seemed like every time Hooker would land something, it seemed to be a lot more damaging than it did when Gamrot would either catch him or try to hold him. There was one point, like, I forget if it was round 1 or 2, where like both of his legs were like crossed or like on his side. And I was like, oh, this could end up really bad. We could snap a leg here. And then he was able to just keep his foot on his hip and not get him to full control. And that was very impressive to see alongside the cage. But yeah, I don't know. Matthias Gamrot fraud checked. And I don't think it's an actual fraud check. I think it's going to stop him from getting the title shot. But it's like, where do you put them in the rankings now? Like Dan Hooker from 11, Gamrot at 5. We'll have to wait and see until Tuesday it is that they make the rankings, and then maybe we'll have to make a decision where Gamrot goes. Is Fiziev back yet? Like, have you heard anything yet?
I don't think he's back yet, unfortunately.
Unbelievable. The dude's got to fight. There's stuff going on here that he has to stop.
I'll say that. So Dan Hooker showed off the ground game and getting up from the takedowns. Gamrot has been working on his striking. I mean, he caught Dan Hooker with some very clean shots, and when I saw that in the first round, I was like, wow, Gamrot, there's a chance, he should get a title shot kind of soon. But yeah, evolution of the UFC game. People are getting more well-rounded. People are stopping these takedowns. The Dagestani way of winning might no longer work now that people are getting better at the takedown D and getting up. I will say, the UFC needs to start cracking down on these fence grabs, and they just need to institute a rule where maybe one warning, and then you lose a point, because a bunch of these fighters are using that warning to their advantage, especially early on when when the fighters are dry and you can actually do more stuff on the ground, those fence grabs are changing the results of some of these matches. So I think Dana really needs to take a look at how they're going to judge these fence grabs, because that has become, or they maybe could even like change the fence, make the things a bit smaller so you can't actually get your fingers through there. I don't know, but it's getting in the way of how some of these fights should end up.
I definitely agree. I think the fence grabbing was definitely apparent on a card like tonight. Even Tafa, which we'll get to later on, was grabbing, and he was just holding on to for dear life, as I like to call it. But what really is affecting the sport, Artie, is judging. And after Tai Tuivasa came in, was unable to really find his mark and make any bit of an impact in this fight against Jairzinho Rozenstruik, in my honest opinion, gets a 30-27. A 30-27 in his favor when he's only landed 37 significant strikes to Jairzinho's 91. And that judge was removed from his assignment for the rest of the night. That judge was supposed to be on the co-main event. And like, it's just insane to me that after that performance, they announce it, the fans are like pissed, and then they remove the judge. And this was supposed to be a fight that someone was supposed to die in that ring. Like, this was not supposed to go the distance. And the fact that, I don't know, either one of them didn't really go all in, and then the judging, it just seems rigged to me. It just seems rigged. And I wanted to see Bam Bam get on top of the cage and have a shoey as much as the next person. But man, I think Rozenstruik has found a new groove after stopping Shamil Gaziev, going into enemy territory and just neutralizing and just basically just countering Bam Bam the whole time and just throwing that jab, using that jab, advancing against him and not letting him get into the fight. I think that was a good boilerplate way of how to fight in the heavyweight division if you're just fighting for points. My honest opinion.
Just a few things I want to bring up. Before it was announced that the judge was taken off the remainder of the card, I texted in the group that this is a fireable offense. So that was nice. I think that this gives more reason for this open scoring that they've been throwing out, where the fighters should know what the judges are scoring each round so that they could potentially like change whether or not they need to go for the knockout. This, again, nobody thought that, at least I thought that no one would think that Tai Tuivasa was doing anything in that fight to win a round, let alone three. But more to the actual fighters, I'm actually not surprised that it didn't end in a finish, because Jairzinho Rozenstruik isn't somebody that attacks too well. He is a counter puncher, but he doesn't move forward. And maybe he didn't move forward here because Tai Tuivasa is such a power puncher, but I also think that Tai Tuivasa, he's just a fan favorite, but he's not really a fantastic fighter, which is why I picked Jairzinho here. At the end of the day, Jairzinho is not going to be a title contender. I think that you put him up against like Pavlovich, for instance, and Pavlovich will go forward and put Jairzinho's lights out, similar to what Ngannou did back in the day. But he can be a good like 5th, 6th seed in that division, maybe, but not an exciting fighter. Tai Tuivasa also no longer an exciting fighter. He's just there to get the fan support. But yeah, I see you frowning over there. He's a good guy, but kind of disrespectful in my opinion that he didn't show for the fans and didn't put his life on the line there after everything that he's been saying his whole career with his resurgence. So the end is near.
Yeah, I thought it was going to end in a stoppage just because of Bam Bam's resume. Like, he has this 5-fight win streak where it's all knockouts, and then the 5-fight losing streak where it's either he's been knocked out or submitted. And then this was the first decision he's had in like 5 years, which is just a crazy stat to me. So I thought he was going to go, tarps off, we're getting the beer, on top of the cage, or we're drinking in the back, sad after a loss. And he had, probably a couple to get over this loss.
The issue is Jairzinho here, not Tai Tuivasa.
I know 100%, but like, I thought he was going to come out swinging a lot more and a lot more volume, and he just did not do that at all. He was He was just like throwing this like fake like body kick, and it was just trying to use it as a utility to keep the distance because obviously Rosenstruck has the reach, but it just didn't create any separation at all because he wasn't landing it. He was just throwing it, trying to get him to be scared of it, and he was not scared of it one bit. What I was scared of was a potential murder on the first fight of the main card, and man, we almost saw it. The Leech getting knocked out for the first time in his career. Carlos Prates. I thought it was Prates. Maybe I'm mispronouncing that. But a ringer from the Ring Boys. I'll give him that bell because this is the only one we have from the main card. And boy, that left hand has some power for a guy who's only 170 pounds. Man, yeah, you hate to see legends like this come in the game and get dropped and folded. I thought he was doing good when he was mixing it up, throwing some kicks. But after Carlos found his range and just started feeling up on his chin, just throwing those left straights, he dropped him with the left hook, got the 50 Gs. And I forget who he called out. It was kind of weird who he called out. Also, Dan Hooker calling out Conor McGregor. I forgot that we didn't talk about that. That was also just like, I know he's riding the high. He just got a big win. And he's excited, but it's like, brother, you're not fighting Conor McGregor. But the Leech losing. You think he retires, or you think we see him once more?
So, I don't know, but I thought that he was going to retire after his last fight, or maybe 2 fights ago. You know, the UFC has been really doing him dirty. They gave him Khamzat Chimaev, okay. Then he loses to Daniel Rodriguez, even though I think it was a split decision, and I thought that he actually won that fight. And that's why he took 2 years off, in my opinion, because he was upset with the UFC, and now they put him against this up and coming Carlos Prates, whatever. That's a fantastic striker, and then he gets sent into the abyss. So, you know, he was such an exciting fighter coming out of China early on in his career, getting a bunch of knockout wins. Power puncher that's willing to stand in front of anybody. And now the matchups that he's getting, it's almost like they just want to build up other people using his name. So I think that he might retire. I mean, that was a bad knockout.
Yeah.
But also, this is another member of the Fighting Nerds getting a win. I think it's the best gym in the world right now. Those guys are so good, and we're gonna see it again next week, or next fight night. So, man, they put out some really good strikers out of the Fighting Nerds. Great game plans going in. Carlos Prates, each time he would knock down the Leech, for some reason he wouldn't go in for the kill, and I'm wondering if he's scared about the Brazilian jiu-jitsu of the Leech, but you know, he's Brazilian too. Maybe he has a little stuff under his sleeve. But that's the only negative part about that fight, was him not finishing it off. But he showed that you can't stand with this guy. Just too technical, too powerful, too accurate. And that's what we got to see. So fantastic fight, fantastic performance. He's an exciting fighter. And Leech, you did great for the UFC, but they're really doing you dirty here.
Couldn't agree with you more, honestly. I'm giving Carlos a new nickname of Calculated Carlos. I don't like Nightmare. Nightmare's a horrible nickname for him. That's all I'm saying. That's your main card. We'll just run through the prelims, and then, Doc, if there are any fights you want to talk about, we'll do it in our rundown fashion. Junior Tafa getting absolutely screwed out of a fight with Walter Walker, which we'll have to come back and talk about that point. Actually, I'm going to make us talk about that. Walter Walker gets the win. Ricardo Ramos getting the questionable decision over Josh Kulibau. Casey O'Neill showing up and dominating Luana Santos. Jack Jenkins doing Jack Jenkins' thing over Herbert Burns. Herbert Burns, I feel like, is just not a Brazilian name. Like, I still won't be able to get over that. Tom Nolan, guy likes trains. That's all I got to say about him. He got the win. Song Kinyan came in and got Ricky Glenn. And Uh, a little funny story for all of those who actually made it to the end of the episode who want to hear this. I was trying to get Doc to put in his picks so we could record the episode. And I was like, hey, just a friendly reminder, like we're going to record soon. And Artie was like, why don't we just pick for him? I'm pretty sure we can just get his picks in and be like pretty much accurate. How many did we miss? We missed like 2. And the 2 that
He
we
missed
missed,
like 3.
it was like 3, right? And I like we started from the bottom. And I was like, nah, he'll say Drakus, he'll say Steve, he'll say Matthias. And I was like, I feel like he'll go Jorginho and he'll definitely go Carlos. I felt like we got the whole main card, right? And then I was like, nah, he'll throw some weird 2 underdogs. He'll probably do Jesus Aguilar and Ricky Glenn. And Artie's like, no way, dude. And I was like, I told you. That was the only one we missed, bro. It was so funny. It was so funny. We should do like whenever it's opposite day, we should just pick for each other and just like have a fun day. Maybe that's something we'll do on like a fight night that we're not interested in at all to just shake up the rankings. That could be a fun idea. But anyway, the thing from the prelims that really excited me, I thought Josh Kulbal did enough. I thought he definitely did more than enough to sway the decision, but Ramos, controlled him in the 3rd round, just went real point fighter on him, held him down, did some damage, and was able to just neutralize him. But the big topic we need to discuss before we get out of here is Walter Walker and Junior Tafa going at it. Walter Walker gets this leg lock, starts to roll. Junior Tafa screams. And I think it was just like a human instinct scream to me of like, oh my God, my leg. But like he was afraid it was about to snap, but it wasn't actually like he was applying that much pressure on it. Ref comes in, stops it. Walter Walker gets the win. Junior Tafa goes over and just slaps Walter Walker and is like, meet me out back. Is that your wife? Is that your wife? Meet me out back. And I just thought that was a classless act by him. But understandably so, he got screwed out of it. So I know it's a rule and all, but Doc, tell me what you think about just this whole situation, how we can get better from it.
Yeah, it's tough to see. I think Tafa was winning that round. If we're going off of damage, he did a lot of damage to Walter Walker in the beginning part, and even though he was on the ground for a good 2-3 minutes, there wasn't much damage coming back from Walker. And then I didn't know about the rule with screaming counting as a verbal tap. I know that you can say tap, tap, tap. That's good enough, but screaming, no, I don't know. I remember when Tony Ferguson was screaming while his leg was in Beneil Dariush's leg lock, and that wasn't called a tap. So what are we doing here? I feel bad because I think Tafa, you get this fight to the feet at the start of the 2nd round. You're only 5 seconds away from doing it. And on the feet, Walker is going to get pieced up in the beginning, and he could easily have gotten knocked out. So it's really tough to see classless from Tafa going over to slap him after the fight. I think that should be penalized, and that's really not a good look, and that definitely doesn't give him a chance to get the decision overturned. I don't know. That being said, I'm not a huge fan of Walker. I think he's a boring fighter. His wrestling isn't that good. His last fight wasn't that good. He needs to work on something else. He's only in the UFC because of his brother, in my opinion. So that's all I got to say.
I agree. I don't think they remake the fight. The only thing I respect from Walter Walker out of all of this is like him just calling out to the fans, like, I just dropped your boy. If you anything, give me his brother right now. Like, sign me up to his brother, and then I'll get a ranked fight. Because to his point, everyone was saying like, with this win, he deserves a ranked fight. And it's like, 1, in the way that this happened and it unfolded, no. 2, if you beat him in a convincing fashion, still no. And it's just like, I want to see them make it against his brother and his brother be in the corner. I think that would be exciting. I don't know. But Walter Walker, for a guy who's 6'6", he fights like he's 5'8". Like, he tries to use his ground game. He doesn't really throw that much hard volume. And I agree, he's just not an exciting fighter. And for him to like say like, oh, like what now? That was all me. It's like, yeah, you got the leg lock, but you didn't do anything with it. So,
like, imagine him against Jalton Almeida. Like theoretically,
Not even
let's say
close.
let's say Walker moves up the rankings. Almeida eats this guy alive.
Yeah, it wouldn't even be close. And the fact that he's like trying to talk, make it this whole ordeal. Yeah, but 305. I don't know. Did it live up to the hype? Did it not live up to the hype?
I thought it was a great great card. I think that the main event was great. We got a bunch of stoppages in there. We got KO of the year contender. The main event was a great fight. I'm happy with it. Uh, so we'll see the next the next UFC numbered event. I can't wait for. So that's going to be exciting too. I don't know. I'm happy. What about you?
Israel Adesanya lost, so I'm going to be sad, a little bit sad about that because I love Izzy. But yeah, overall the event was good. I'd give it a B plus, in my honest opinion. If that Tafa thing didn't happen, and if what's his name was able to actually make an impact, I would have been a little bit more satisfied. But it is what it is. Josh Colbell. But yeah, Doc, anything else before we sign off here? Jared Cannonier will be fighting next weekend against Baralho, the Fighting Nerds camp. So we'll be covering that one on a post show. And before we get out of here, anything we got to say?
Yeah, not much else. I can't keep looking at Hamzat. He hasn't been on my TV in 2 years, so get him out of there.
He's coming. That's all I got to say. He's coming. Anyways,
he's ruining your fantasy team.
I was going to win regardless. I picked for the fans. Bye-bye.